Human ecology is the relationship between humans and their natural, social, and built environments. I have spent hundreds of hours on the transformation of my truck, and from the days and nights I worked, I started realizing that I was diving more into human ecology. I was understanding who I wanted to be and was creating a basis to what I wanted to do in my adulthood. I found there was one major problem in the transformation of my truck. It was an absolute gas guzzler. This particular engine is a 7.5 liter 460 horsepower towing machine. It is built strictly for towing and hauling, not for gas mileage. I've always been struggling with the fact that just about half the money spent on my truck is gas money, and I knew that it couldn't be good for the environment. If I wanted to keep driving this truck, I needed something in the engine to change. That's where my independent trimester came into play. This truck helps me find my sense of self every time I work on it. Having that sense of place, sense of self, and community responsibility is exactly what this project is about. I understand that having a gas-guzzling engine is incredibly harmful to the environment, and if I would like to keep driving it, I need to put an effort into making this truck more environmentally sound. I've changed many parts within my truck's engine to achieve maximum potential and efficiency. There are many different tricks to keep an engine performing in the most adequate way possible, and I've tested each product by itself to understand how it affected my engine and its efficiency. With the research I have conducted, my findings should hopefully improve my gas mileage by up to 75%. My hope with this project is that you take my findings and apply it to your vehicle to use less gas driving and run more efficiently. This is why I've created an in-depth blog giving you information about what each product I tested does, how it is used in the vehicle, and problems or tips that I had in the installation of the product. I have designed this project not only to help the impact of my engine, but also anyone else who is interested in saving a few dollars at the pump but doesn't know what will work and what doesn't. As I explained, I have switched out many different parts of my engine to make it as fuel efficient and have least amount of an impact to the environment as possible. But I knew it wasn't going to be cheap. After calculating the amount of money needed, I decided to reach out to the community for some help. A few businesses graciously stepped up to be sponsored. They have donated engine parts, fuel, and their money in exchange for an advertisement. I created a banner to attach to the back of my truck that has the names of all the businesses that sponsored my project. I understand that to get a new car could save me gas and drive smoother, but I also know that this truck has a value and history to me and my family. After researching about the environmental impact of vehicles, I have come to the conclusion that it could be more environmentally dangerous for me to buy a new car. I started looking into electric cars and different fuel types. I learned electric cars really don't do anything positive to the environment when it comes to air pollution. Biofuel engines are a good alternative that could decrease the environmental impact, but biofuel engines cannot be put in every car driven now. Even dictating all U.S. corn and soybean production to biofuels would meet only 12% of gasoline demand and 6% of diesel demand. I ended up choosing to try a couple different air products, a part to enhance fuel quality, change out different types of tires, understand how oxygen plays a role, tune up, and also a little part that was cheap and effective. I started my project off with cleaning out the air intake tubes and replacing the air filter. As you see in the video, the air moves through the engine and into the piston. The oxygen used gets ignited with the fuel and allows the engine to run properly. To have a clean combustion, we need clean air. If I have air intake tubes or a filter that is dirty, my engine may not use the amount of quality oxygen it wants. The process of switching out air products was an easy task, and I found that I would have a lot more fun understanding why the different parts acted the way they did inside my engine. So that was what I did with each product for the rest of my iTry. I tried to understand combustion, compression, and the spark of the oxygen and fuel. Although I had done research about it, I realized that I would never have learned it fully without doing the work hands-on. I learned that learning and applying to the real world are two completely different things. Having clean fuel can directly affect the way an engine runs, and I learned that when I replaced my fuel filter. When I took apart my fuel filter, I realized that it hasn't been switched out since my truck was built. That is the reason that a new fuel filter had a direct effect to my gas mileage. When fuel is not filtered, the injectors get clogged very easy, and the engine would not run properly. This was exactly what was happening in my truck. The black gunk in this picture is all of the particles that were built up over time. At this point, I can imagine that the filter was doing more harm than good. Installing a fuel filter in my truck was very beneficial, with a 26% increase at only $50. I installed a small magnet to my fuel line to also enhance fuel quality. I wasn't expecting this to work, but that is the point of my project, to test out different products and analyze them for others to learn. At this point, the project was going incredibly well, and I knew that at some point I was going to have a problem. Sure enough, problem 1 came about when I was trying to take off the oxygen sensor. It turns out that O2 sensors are susceptible to not coming off. They are located on the exhaust, so the metal would heat up and contract every time I would run it. I spent almost an entire day trying to take my oxygen sensor off. I ended up completely stripping the bolt and never was able to take it off. My next problem happened that next day when I attempted to install a different set of tires. The tires I had set up didn't end up fitting my truck's bolt pattern, and I spent the entire day trying to find the correct wheels and tires to fit my truck. After going through just about every auto shop in Haley and Bellevue, I resorted to taking one of my dad's work trucks and switching out the tires. After my couple days of nothing but problems, I went into Tom Anderson to get a reading on the oxygen being emitted and an overall test of my engine's efficiency. After testing, I realized that my O2 sensor doesn't even work. The oxygen sensor is the final sensor before the fumes get expelled. It is supposed to tell my engine's computer if it is expelling the correct amount of fumes. And because this sensor isn't working, the engine could theoretically be expelling as many fumes as it wants and not adjust for the amount it is supposed to. Installing a new O2 sensor was a must. Learning this with Tom was an incredible experience, and I learned so much on just testing the O2 sensor. I had to resort to take it the Dave's Best Way and have them cut a hole in my exhaust, abandon the stripped one, and put a new one in. Next on the list was a tune-up. Doing a tune-up with Tom was exactly what I needed to finish my independent trimester. He explained how installing a fuel filter, air intake, and checking compression helps my engine perform better. He explained how there's an optimum air-fuel ratio, why we check spark plugs, why we switch out the distributor cap, rotor, and PCV valve. Tom was able to take an entire half day teaching me the basics to an engine and explain why we did what we did. Having him help me concluded my project perfectly. My final results, when everything was installed, was a 54% increase in gas mileage. I was only 1.5 miles per gallon off my original goal, so I found this project as a huge success. I would like to give a huge thanks to the sponsors for giving me the opportunity to buy the products I needed for this independent trimester. Also, a huge thank you to Dave Stone at the Auto Club for being my mentor and being patient when this project was just an idea.